Welcome to Chiropractical. I'm your host, Jon Kec, and on this episode, the crypt is open. All right, seriously though, inside are chilling tales pulled straight from NCMIC's claims files. They're not ghost stories. They're actual real lawsuits. Claims that prove it doesn't matter how skilled or careful you are, even the best doctors may find themselves living inside a nightmare. I'm Jon Kec, and this is Chiropractical, and this is our annual Claims from the Crypt episode. You'll hear 3 bone-chilling real tales where chiropractors who did basically nothing wrong still ended up having to defend their reputation, their license, and their livelihoods. These aren't stories of superstition or urban legends. They're real claims, real cases pulled straight from our NCMIC claims vault. Our goal isn't to scare you, it's to prepare you, because inside every haunting tale lies some truth. With the right knowledge and support, you can prevent your own story from becoming the next thing whispered about in the dark, or told on Tales to the Crypt. At the end of the episode, please leave us a comment wherever you listen. Tell us about what story shook you the most. To share these spooky stories, we're joined by 2 members of our claims department, Tom Caswell and Zach Meyers. Tom, Zach, happy Halloween, and how are you today?
Good.
So coming up on Halloween, what are the plans in the households? We've got kids dressing up, or are we avoid Halloween at all costs type of family?
Oh, we're a big Halloween family.
Okay.
We live in a small little development with a handful of neighbors, about 15 houses or so. A lot of little kids in those houses though. So we have everybody come to our house before trick or treat beggars night starts. We feed them, I don't know, kind of a covered dish thing. Bring your own covered dish. We bring some chili and feed the kids. And then at 6 o'clock, when it's time to start beggars night, I hold the kids back. All the parents leave. They go to their houses and man their doors. And then we send the kids out in the neighborhood and they trick or treat. And then they come back to our house and we have fun until everybody wants to go home.
We're usually a big decoration family, but again, we're expecting our first child in December. So this year we're a little subdued, but we'll still hand out treats and stuff like that. And we look forward to it. It's a nice time of year too.
So in our first claim from the crypt today, we're going to take a look at trusted friendship, a routine adjustment, but then a lawsuit that came out of absolutely nowhere. So tell us a little bit about Dr. Smith and kind of what that situation was that he faced.
Sure. Dr. Smith had been practicing in a small town for 33 years. He established a good reputation as a kind and caring practitioner and just a general good person. Everybody thought well of him in the community. He'd been treating this patient, Mr. Brown, I'll use that name, for 9 years for his chronic neck pain. No radicular or neurological symptoms, just general neck pain that, he had just came on from years and years of being hard on his body. He's a laborer. He built houses. So, the normal chronic issues that comes from building homes for a long time and using your body. Dr. Smith and Mr. Brown, they didn't socialize together, but they considered each other's friends, and they were friendly with each other when they saw each other out in the community. Sure. So it kind of came as a surprise on the last visit. After a brief exam and history, our doctor did his normal per usual treatment of some heat, massage, and then a diversified chiropractic manual adjustment to the cervical spine. Everything went great as normal. Tolerated the treatment well. They laughed and joked on the way to the door when our doctor walked them out to the lobby to send him out. Normal, same kind of joking that they always do. And everything was going great as far as, Dr. Brown, or Dr. Smith thought. And then, that's the last I kind of heard from Mr. Brown until 6 months later when a sheriff showed up at his clinic and hand delivered him a lawsuit, where once Dr. Smith started looking at the lawsuit, he realized that the claim was that after the last adjustment that went great, the last adjustment that Mr. Brown's now saying that he screamed in pain so loud after that last adjustment, the entire clinic heard it and stopped what they were doing.
We'll probably talk about this here in a little bit. Some of maybe the red flags or things that may have come up along the way that Dr. Smith may have overlooked at the time or not noticed. But that 6-month gap between visits, do you happen to know offhand, is that normal for the way Dr. Smith and Mr. Brown's treatment relationship went?
Yeah,
or was that a prolonged period of time?
No, he would come in as needed. So there wasn't
Okay.
a treatment plan. It was just, hey, when he wasn't feeling good or whatever, he usually came in a couple months between. So it was a little bit maybe longer than normal, but nothing that, let's keep it Mr. or Dr. Smith up at night thinking, when is Mr.
Sure.
Brown coming back again? It was just,
Gotcha. Okay.
normal thing. Didn't think anything of it. So he comes in, or so he's reading the lawsuit, and the allegations against him in the lawsuit it says that he caused a C5, C6 disc herniation that resulted in surgery, tremendous amount of bills, and Mr. Brown is no longer able to work ever again as a
Wow.
laborer.
Okay.
He can't build homes anymore, so he's got medical bills and lost wages, and that's what it's claiming. And it was a shock to Dr. Smith. He had no idea that occurred, and now, also along with that lawsuit is an affidavit of merit from an expert that says, yes, Dr. Smith did everything wrong in his care and treatment of this patient, and caused this injury. And it was just a complete shock to Dr. Smith, and through him. Again, an old friend that didn't reach out and contact him after this alleged bad adjustment occurred.
Yeah.
Which is pretty normal when we hear that a patient that, when there is an event that occurs in the office, we usually hear it right away. The doctors hear about it right away. So, coming out of the blue was just hit him like a wall, I guess. He hit a wall.
Yeah. Do you have an estimate on that? Like, what percentage of claims are more what you said, the norm, where it happens, the doctor knows within, the day, 5 days a week, whatever a normal time frame would be, versus ones that are like this? It kind of comes out of the blue, 6 months, a year, close to that 2-year statute of limitations in a lot of cases. How often does something like that happen?
I don't know how often it happens, but I can tell you, typically when there is an adverse reaction and it's a patient that they have a good relationship with, the doctors know about it right away. Those patients are
Okay.
calling right away that next day. Hey, doc, something went wrong on that last treatment. Can I come back in and can you fix me up, or can we redo what's going on here? It's just not right. They hear about it. Those are ones that, okay, maybe there was an adverse reaction during the treatment. But when the doctors don't hear about it or don't hear from those people for a long time and just ghost them, and they're not calling and saying, hey, what happened here? Can we work on what's going on with these issues? And then you suddenly get the lawsuit. I don't know about the frequency, but it's immediate red flags for us as claims reps.
Sure.
That there may or may not be a real claim here or
Okay.
something that we caused. So that's the thing I picked up when I first, got a hold of this case.
Majority of times the doctors have some indication, but again, there's no way to know for sure. Percentage wise, it'd be hard to say, what how to actually quantify that. But it can vary. But I say majority of times, sometimes they're aware that something, may have happened if there's a noticeable issue at the treatment.
So where does Dr. Smith go from here? The sheriff shows up.
Yep. He called NCMIC right away, which is what you need to do. Called NCMIC right away when something comes up and report it. Because we want to hear from you as soon as anything happens. Our job is to not just help you with a claim that comes in, but help you prevent claims from coming in.
Sure.
So call us, let us know, we'll try and help. But Dr. Smith called us right away, so we got going right away on it. We hired an attorney and started gathering medical records, to start investigating to see, what happened here, what's really going on. Disc herniation cases are typically defensible. It's not having a herniation is not a contraindication to treatment. It's the chiropractic adjustment, the sound you hear. It's a audible release. It's a decompressive force, and to have a disc herniation, you need a compressive force, an axial loading force. So we know right away when just nature of the allegations, the way it happened, something's not right here. But once we did get the records and we saw that, the neck, as we knew, was chronic neck pain. There's degenerative disc disease in about every level of Mr. Brown's neck, the whole spine. There were bulges about every level of the cervical spine. C5,
Okay.
C6 did have a small herniation, but once we got the op report, started reading the operation report from the orthopedic surgeon that performed the procedure, the need for the surgery wasn't the disc herniation. It was the shaving off of the osteophyte formations that had developed on that at that level.
Gotcha.
And those
Okay.
bony spurs were the ones pressing on the nerve, causing his real pain.
Okay.
So that's what the need for the surgery was. Obviously, a chronic degenerative condition that a single chiropractic adjustment did not cause. A single adjustment can't cause bone the grow, like the spurs that grow. So, we immediately postured this for trial. Our experts were all supportive, of course, of the care and treatment Dr. Smith had provided. We obviously had surgeons say what the true need for the surgery was. And, we took it to trial, and Dr. Smith was adamant he wanted to clear his name. So we did. Yeah. We took it to trial. We took it to a verdict, and, we defended the case. But, this is a small town. This is a friend of his. Dr. Smith. So it's, or at the time it was a friend of his. They're not friends anymore, but they were at the time, it was a friend of his. It caused a lot of sleepless nights, for him, and just a nightmare. And, it's just, we live in a litigious world, and when people have medical bills that come up unexpectedly, they can't work anymore to pay for those medical bills or everything else in the future. They're looking for any way for them to kind of survive. And that was Mr. Brown's motivation, is I need to find money. And he was hoping Dr. Smith would be the way. And the medical evidence helped us prove it wasn't, besides the fact that he didn't do anything wrong.
What about, you mentioned with the original notice of suit, there was also an expert witness affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
So with something like that, when they have that strong, I'm going to use air quotes, strong support from another provider saying that what is being alleged happened, I understand we bring experts in of our own, right? And we build a case to refute that. But I imagine as a doctor, Dr. Smith probably, that hits a little closer to home when you've got another chiropractor saying you screwed up, right?
Right.
So what are kind of both sides of that? How do we work through with a doctor trying to kind of handle that professional hit that comes in, but then how do we refute that legally?
Professionally, I guess you just tell the doctor first and foremost that this expert may not have all the records at their disposal. They may be hearing from an attorney that says, hey, here's our side of it. Here's what we were saying occurred. If this happened, would this be a breach? And would this have caused the injury? And those experts, even though clearly a professional chiropractor should know that osteophyte formation does not occur from a single adjustment, but from a long-standing time, they know that. But, based on the representation that they're hearing from the attorney, based on what you're telling me, I'm able to sign that off. Then at their depositions, when we're able to finally confront them with our attorneys and, actually get in their faces, they can see it a lot real quick, real fast, because they have to, because that's the way it is. But, unfortunately, that's the way that the system's set up, is that they don't necessarily have to be held to a standard where, we'd like to see, maybe, I guess, from a defense standpoint. But again, it's based on representations that they're told. And we let the doctors know that, and they're okay with it.
And the other thing we do too is, obviously we deal with this all the time, and we can kind of give them some understanding as far as what we see, to get them a different view that, hey, just because somebody's saying, or there's an affidavit saying this, doesn't necessarily mean it's one, going to impact our ability to defend this case, because we're going to get our own experts. Again, as Tom mentioned, sometimes they may be limited on the records that a plaintiff attorney provides to them. So they may make an opinion based upon literally, whatever's provided to them. And then when they get additional information, we are able to talk to them. Sometimes those opinions change. So again, that's a key role we have it too, is just kind of educating our insureds and our doctors to make them as comfortable with the process. Again, we deal with this all the time, or this is new to our doctors, which is scary. So we try to make them aware of what we've seen, and how we'll approach it in the future.
Luckily, and knock on wood, hopefully never had to deal with this, but I can't imagine all the ramifications that come to mind, right? Especially if it's a sheriff that shows up at the office at 11 o'clock in the morning when you've got 6 patients in there and they see this all happening. There's the professional side, there's the personal side, there's the livelihood and future side. So, I can only imagine the amount of things y'all have to kind of juggle, right? From a conversational perspective, as well as defending this case and ultimately trying to win it for the insured whenever possible. So,
especially when you have somebody like Dr. Smith practicing in a small town where your rumors fly in those small towns, when there's not a lot of news. So when there is something like this, it's it can hit the news. It can hit the local gossip circuit, I
Sure.
guess.
Mhm.
And a lot of doctors worry about how that's going to impact their clinics and their
Yeah.
what's going to happen there. And we tell them, you'll be fine. Trust me. You'll probably have more traffic. And that's what happens in the vast majority, where even these small towns where, maybe as a prominent member of the community is making allegations, still, they're okay usually.
In our second claim from the crypt today, we're going to take a look at what seemed like kind of a routine decision that I think a lot of us face. What do you do with a chronically late patient? And I know sometimes we make the decision to dismiss them from care. There's a process that's, probably best advised to follow. And I don't know if this doctor necessarily did that, so let's talk about that a little bit. But in this situation, whatever the process was, it did not go well. It led to a whole host of things, lies about the provider and the practice, online attacks, and ultimately a board complaint that could have altered the trajectory of this doctor's career. Take us through it a little bit.
So we'll refer to our doctor as Dr. Jones. He's a well-respected member of his community. It's a pretty large community. His practice is located in a busy city. Dr. Jones always told his wife that he was a good busy. He enjoyed practicing, kept busy.
Yeah.
He had great staff and patients. That was for the most part. He ran into a situation with a patient who had trouble missing appointments. Our insured, Dr. Jones, is pretty lax in implementing any punishments for those missed appointments. And he was kind of afraid of approaching the patient about those missed appointments.
Okay.
Eventually, he did work up enough courage to kind of approach him, explain to him how disruptive his missed appointments were for him and the office staff, and how important appointments were to adhere to for a treatment plan, planning purposes, and optimal outcome for that treatment plan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this visit didn't do much to impact the patient's attendance, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. The patient continued to miss the scheduled appointments, and Dr. Jones, again, as I mentioned, kind of hated conflict, but he decided to take a stand. And he ended up having to dismiss the patient for optimal care. Again, there has to be trust on both sides, the doctor-patient relationship.
Sure.
If we're not, adhering to treatment plans, or patients not coming to those appointments, that potentially could impact us. We could be, somewhat held potentially responsible for not referring, or, things just come up where at some point it may make sense to dismiss a patient.
Yeah.
So we eventually sent out a letter. The doctor sent a dismissal letter to the patient.
Can we talk about that process a little bit?
Sure.
What does something like that look like when you are dismissing a patient? If situations vary, let's look at a couple situations, but at least in this case, when it is it's not a good fit because the treatment plan just isn't going to work because for
Sure.
whatever reason, the patient can't make appointments, can't make them on time. What's that process look like?
Yeah. So, obviously, generally speaking, doctors aren't dismissing patients. They're your source of income. You want to treat
Sure.
people. You want to help people. But there are those situations where, depending upon many or no reason specifically, again, generally the outline for dismissing a patient is the doctor can dismiss a patient for any reason or no reason at all. Of course, again, as
Okay.
I kind of stated, doctors aren't dismissing patients just for no reason, right? But there's a process to follow. So a lot of times we get calls about, patients who may be, for whatever reason, the doctors don't feel safe treating. There could be red flags. It's just not a good fit. So in that situation, we have a discussion saying, hey, what would you like to do? We kind of explain to them, as I stated, you can dismiss them for any reason, no reason at all.
Okay.
And the biggest thing is you just have to do so properly. And properly involves sending that dismissal letter
Okay.
to the patient to formally end that doctor-patient relationship. That way there can't be claims of abandonment. That's the big thing we're dealing with when we're dismissing a patient. So it's kind of a conversation. Again, it can depend upon the doctor's, view. If they think they can work through it, depending upon the situation, they dictate care, not the patient. The doctor does. So they feel they can work through it, have a discussion. If it's kind of an awkward encounter, and they want to continue to treat, that's something they can do. So we do our best to kind of guide them.
Okay.
But again, the thing we like to point out is if it's you know, a patient who you think is high risk, those are the patients who are most often or likely to complain if something from their perception goes poorly. Again,
Sure.
increased pain, they're the ones that could probably ask for money back. So again, it's just a conversation we have with our insureds just to determine, hey, is this somebody you want to treat? And if
Gotcha.
you don't, we can go through the dismissal process.
Okay. So two things with that, just to make sure we're
Mhm.
clear. When you say discuss with our insureds, that's something they can call in at any point if they feel like they have a problem with a patient, somebody they need to just talk through the situation. Y'all are here to work with them through that, to give them kind of the conversation you just outlined. And then if they make the ultimate decision to dismiss that patient and set that letter up, what are the points of that letter they want to make sure are
Mhm.
highlighted and outlined going forward to do it the right way?
Yeah, the doctors or insureds can call us. There's no claim being opened. It's just kind of risk management advice.
Okay.
And we act, and personally, I have a templated email. This is a pretty common call we get. So the letter, we can send you a sample letter. Again, we always encourage people to contact their local boards or associations for maybe exact verbiage or, timing. Some states want, more timing as far as like urgent care referral, stuff like that. But our letter
Okay.
has basically everything you need to formally or properly dismiss a patient. There's some odd things like, you are supposed to send them by regular and certified mail. If the patient doesn't
Okay.
accept a certified copy, then that's not a big deal. But if they do, place a copy in the patient chart. Again, the
Okay.
goal of that is you're basically confirming they got the letter so that they then can't come back and say, hey, I didn't know I was dismissed. And because I didn't know that, my condition worsened. And because my condition worsened, it's now caused an injury to the point where if I was notified properly, I wouldn't have had this injury.
I think we'll probably talk about this a little more when we spin back to Dr. Jones here. But when you say abandonment, are we talking accusations of malpractice abandonment or board-based issues regarding abandonment,
It can be
or
both.
both?
It can be both.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would say it's probably more likely in the board setting,
Okay.
just because, again, when you're looking at malpractice, the burden of proof would be pretty high. So again, malpractice, just briefly speaking, would involve them, proving the doctor didn't adhere to the standard of care, and that breaching that standard of care was the cause of the injury. So when you're looking at abandonment,
Sure.
it gets pretty, you're getting pretty far down the line to say, because we didn't tell you you were dismissed properly and you didn't receive treatment in whatever you feel is a timely manner, there's an injury that resulted in damages as well. So it kind of gets a little bit far fetched. I'm not saying it's impossible. We just don't, again, I haven't seen one personally. I don't have
Yeah,
confidence,
Okay.
but
and
I would definitely say the board matters are more likely. The ones I dealt with were board matters. I mean, people complained to the
Gotcha.
board. They had to deal with the board, and in this situation, they had issues because they just closed their practice and didn't communicate with people. I think it was around COVID times.
Gotcha.
But board matters generally are more likely than a PL, professional liability lawsuit,
Okay.
because anybody can complain to the board. Doesn't mean the board request is legitimate, but generally the boards have to look into it.
Yeah.
So I'd say we would get more likely on the board side.
So what about Dr. Jones? So reached out to us. We got that letter ready. What happens
Yep.
next?
Yeah. So, and this is a risk of sending a dismissal letter, and that's when you call us. We'll talk through it. But the patient was not happy to get this letter. Okay. And because of that, she responded with a Google review. And in that Google review, she said how rude and inappropriate the insured was. And she included allegations that he called her fat, and that was part of the reason for the dismissal.
Okay.
She followed up her Google review by making a complaint to the state board. Again, these patients will sometimes do that. Is sometimes their only avenue to, I guess, feel like they're getting back at the insured. So at this point, that's when the doctor, Dr. Jones, contacted us looking for advice. At this point, we talked to Dr. Jones about our ability to use our auto legal defense endorsement. So we have an endorsement on our policy that helps you for professional licensing matters, such as this. And at this point, that's when we retained an attorney to help him draft a response to that board complaint.
Okay.
The attorney at that point, provided a response to the board that kind of clued them in on the reality of the situation. We didn't say any of that. What she was alleging is not true. And luckily that board matter was eventually dismissed. And all was good there. Now,
Okay.
regarding the social media posts that she left, the Google review, we advise the insured to handle that carefully. We got to be careful in not responding to online Google reviews because of HIPAA. Even though we want to respond and defend ourselves, it's generally not a good idea. Unless, our advice generally is to speak or have other patients submit favorable reviews, maybe bury that response. But in
Okay.
this situation, because of the complete untruth of what the patient reported, we encourage him to report it to Google. And luckily in this situation, Google did take down this review. So we can talk to our insurers with negative reviews about options. We may have to refer you to an attorney about potential ways to deal with that review, because sometimes these sites will or will not be, helpful. And people have the right to complain.
Sure.
So but in this situation, luckily the Google review was able to be taken down. But this is just a good example of a kind of a spooky story where you're doing everything right. You handle the patient, you try to work with them, and it can still end poorly, quote unquote, in the sense
Mhm.
you have a board complaint, bad Google reviews. But again, that's where you'd want to contact us, and we could kind of help you through the process. It ended pretty well for the doctor overall, outside of probably losing a little bit of
Little sleep.
a little sleep and a little frustration with the process.
All right. Last case for the day. And I'm going to say I love this as an example. The topic, I think, is it's not something a lot of people think about. We did a really good job, I think, with the first one covering some malpractice stuff. This one, we're hitting more of the board-based issues. But this last piece, I think it's an ever-increasing problem, but it's not something a lot of doctors really realize is a problem. And it's from two different facets of this issue. So for this last one, let's talk a little bit about Dr. Johnson, beloved chiropractor in her community, in practice for a long time, but then got stuck in a bit of a rock and a hard place situation, I guess we'll say, at least it seemed at first, with a really good friend who came into the practice, an accusation of sexual misconduct, and then ultimately some employment issues that she had to deal with. So take us through what happened with Dr. Johnson.
Dr. Johnson had a great practice. She'd been there in their community for a very long time. And she's such a good practitioner and involved in the community. The community, gave back to her as well. And her patient load was overwhelming for her. So she started looking at options. She decided she's going to hire an associate chiropractor into the office. And then that led to a second associate and then a third. And she had a thriving practice where patients were coming in the door and loving it. And everything was great. Everything was perfect for her, almost too perfect. And then, that is until one day where her best friend, one of her best friends, called sobbing and said, "I just left the clinic and the worst thing just happened to me." And she went into this whole story about how during the treatment, she was, sexually assaulted by one of the associate chiropractors. One of the male associate chiropractors had, done something inappropriate to her. And our doctor, she apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry to hear this," and so forth. And "I'll look into it. I promise. I'll take care of it, make it right, whatever." And she launched her own investigation. She brought the associate into the office and said, "Hey, here, what just happened? I just got this phone call. Here's what they're saying occurred. What's going on here?" And the male chiropractor's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Your friend just came on to me. She tried to make a move on me. I had nothing. I didn't do anything wrong here." Okay. That is his story. And she had to, she was distraught. I mean, she's like, "Oh, now I have one of my best friends saying this occurred. I kind of believe her now. This associate that I've worked with for these years is now saying that that's not exactly at all what happened." And it's just, she didn't know what to do. And she finally decided she had to just believe in her friend and do what's best maybe for her practice. She met with an employment attorney, went over everything with them, and they did their advice on how to let the chiropractor go. And she fired the chiropractor. And she
Okay.
called her friend and said, "Hey, He said something completely different happened, but I believe you. You're one of my best friends, and I just didn't want to have to look at him in question, so I fired him, got him out of my office because of these allegations, and everything seemed to be good. Everything was going really well until about 6 months later, when she got a lawsuit claiming that sexual assault from the chiropractor against the chiropractor, and then spooky. Yes, we're okay.
Right when we hit
Halloween,
the scary part of the story, the lights go out.
So she got this lawsuit, the sexual allegations lawsuit, the assault charges against the male chiropractor in the lawsuit, and the allegations at the clinic, which was also named in the lawsuit, her corporation, was that there was negligent hiring and supervision by Dr. Johnson.
Okay.
So it was horrible. And to top it off, the male associate chiropractor didn't pay his malpractice premiums. They had no coverage. There was nothing there. He had no assets, no insurance coverage. He had nothing to help with this lawsuit. So the focus was on Dr. Johnson's clinic, her in the clinic,
Sure.
and what her actions were as the employer. She reported to us, NCMIC again, right away. We reviewed it, the lawsuit. When these allegations of sexual assault come in, and the things that surround it, there's some coverage concerns, just because the action is intentional by nature, and there's no insurance policies that cover intentional actions. You can't intentionally do something to somebody and have insurance coverage for it anywhere. So we reviewed the allegations against the clinic, and because of the specific state laws, because it's state by state determination on the way the laws apply with insurance coverage, we were able to assist Dr. Johnson in the lawsuit with a defense under a reservation of rights. If a jury ultimately found something was done intentionally or something along those lines, there may not be coverage. But we were able to assist in this case for a while. For this, we investigated Dr. Johnson's, the allegations against her and her clinic that we were defending were the negligent hiring and supervision claims. So we looked at what she did for her hiring process and her supervision. Luckily, she had a great written policy for her clinic, for her employees on what's appropriate, what's not, what to do, which helped isolate her, that she's not burying her hand in the sand, but she's trying to show everybody what needs to happen. And then she also, when she hired this chiropractor, she didn't just log on to the website to see if the license was active. She actually, or to see if there's any marks on it, which is another good thing to do. But she also called the references of this chiropractor and got glowing remarks and had conversations with the people that the other chiropractor had worked with before. And the important part was she documented all this. She documented the checking her license status and all this. She documented the phone calls, checking references in a personnel file. So then we had a great case for Dr. Johnson. She didn't do anything wrong. She did everything she could. No one said anything bad about this person. So how would she know she brought some bad character into her clinic? There's no way for her to know. So we had a defense for her, but this was Dr. Johnson's best friend, and she just was not up to the fight to fight her friend for something that her friend said occurred in her clinic. So she begged and begged for us to settle the case. She wasn't up for the fight at trial. And after some discussion, because of the reservation of rights, meaning there may not be coverage if the jury ultimately found something, we were able to compromise and walk away with a very nominal settlement that would have been less than if we would have went to trial, paying her attorney. So it worked out for her, but it was sleepless nights for her and a nightmare for sure.
So like I said in the beginning, I think I love this as an example because it looks at a bunch of different things that I don't think doctors think about, right? The pieces we've already talked on, the sexual misconduct allegations. I know conversationally those are on the rise. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Is it something where so I guess maybe before we go there, how the policy responded in a situation like this? So we were defending the corporation against the allegations of negligent hiring and supervision, you said, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How does the policy, was that more of a malpractice based claim? Is that more of the board had issues with what happened claim? Where does that fall?
So some states, that's in some states, again, state to state specific stuff, but in some states that can be seen as the rendering of professional services, even though you're not
Okay.
actually treating a patient. You're still rendering a professional service for those patients by supervising your employees, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where the coverage attorneys, because we have it reviewed by coverage attorneys to see, oh, does this apply in this state or not?
Okay.
Then make sure we're not making any mistakes, because we want to make sure we're doing everything we can for our doctors as well. So
Sure.
once a coverage attorney says, yes, that's what's going on here, then, then we move on and defend. So that's what it was. But again, it's under a reservation of rights, because it's not cut and dry. Yes, we're going to help you with this 100%.
Sure.
There's questions.
And then last piece of this, it's something I feel like I have a lot of conversations with, honestly, both sides of the fence, employing doctors and employee doctors, about is the kind of the situation you mentioned where the doctor separates from the practice. They, for whatever reason, do not continue their malpractice insurance. And that leaves the practice then exposed in a way they didn't expect and probably aren't even aware of, because they have no idea what that doctor did 6 months down the line. They have no idea they're not covered for the time in their office anymore. I usually, and educate me if you guys have a different opinion or a better approach, I usually try to talk to employers and employees about having discussions about that on the front end, right? The either claims made or occurrence nature of the policy, language in the contract around where legally allowed, language in the contract around separation and who buys tail coverage, how those costs continue, all that stuff. Is that something you guys would agree is of value to employers, to make sure they hammer out all those details?
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
the start?
100%.
And there's one more thing they can do on that too. On that, they can, when you added a new employee, and you say, hey, do you have insurance? Can you prove that to me? And they show them a deck page that's active, an active policy. Okay, you hired them, they have an active policy, great, but you can take that a step further. You can ask your employee to be added to their insurance coverage as a certificate holder. And
Sure.
what that does is that if there is a change, if they miss a premium, if they don't pay if they switch companies or they lower their limits, you're notified by the insurance company we're required, if somebody's a certificate holder on one of our policies, if there's a change in the policy, we're required to let that certificate holder know there was a change in the policy. So as an employer, if you're a certificate holder on your employees' policies, you'll be notified if there is a change, if they miss a premium, so that hey, whoa, what's going on here? You have to have insurance, or you're not coming in and treating people in my clinic,
Sure.
kind of thing. So
That's a huge, you should be doing that for every employee, the certificate holder, because again, you're not paying anything. It's just you get notified, if something changes, which is huge, because we do see it, again, semi-frequently. I would say, you're looking at, your associates, even like assessed therapists, they're good to make sure that they're paying for their premiums, because unfortunately, if there's not coverage for the quote unquote responsible party, then they're going to be looking at you as a corporation owner. So a very important piece to kind of consider.
What about in a situation like this, though, where that doctor has separated from the practice? Again, correct me if I'm wrong, I would assume generally the doctor is going to request their former employer be removed as a certificate holder once they've separated. So best practices relative to keeping your responsible time, the time the doctor was in your office, insured long-term. What would you guys recommend there?
That's a good question. I guess the biggest thing, is I guess you can encourage occurrence policy. Again, you can't make anybody do that. But that kind of prevents the whole tail issue. If they were to leave your practice, not purchase tail, I guess I don't know if you're notified if they don't purchase tail, or again, I don't know where this would look like as far as when they left, right? Because if they're gone, I'm not sure how that play out. I don't know if Tom, you had a.
I mean, the
other
only thing
insight
thing I would say is, as part of their compensation package with your employee, if you offer to pay their premiums, so
Sure.
hey, I'm in control of what's going on here because I'm paying those premiums. That could be another option.
Well, and I think that's kind of the similar conversation what I have, right? Is look at occurrence, consider it because of the simplicity. If not, again, we're legally allowed. Build in some language around tail coverage at separation from the practice. Who's going to pay for it? How does that all work? But I think what you also mentioned is compensation packages, right? And that front end conversation. How are we going to pay for this malpractice insurance? Because it's the only way to really protect yourself, I think, long term, that I can kind of figure out. And I think the cost of a few years worth of malpractice versus the cost of being the primary focus of a claim the scales tip very heavily to that second side. So do it from the beginning and protect yourself. So awesome. I just want to bounce it off you guys. That's conversations I have fairly frequently, and that's kind of usually how I explain it. So awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, anything else with Dr. Johnson that you guys want to share? Any other words of wisdom or things we should take a look at and maybe try to do a little differently next time?
Just that certificate holder.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and document those the stuff you do with in the personnel files with your employees, researching what they're doing. That's what saved would have saved Dr. Johnson. I mean, if you want to go to trial, but we still have to settle it.
Yeah. And then general, just kind of statements to kind of encompass all of this. I guess give us a call if you ever have questions. And we're here to help you, even if it's not, a quote unquote malpractice lawsuit. We can help you through the risk management process. The other thing it just popped in mind: do not change or alter records. That's not a good thing to do. We don't often see it, but if you have questions, you can call us. We can talk you how to make an addendum, stuff like that is going to allow us to still hopefully defend the case if it's defensible by not making an issue out of records by changing it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for pulling these 3 cases and giving us a really good variety. I think today, a lot of things to think about, some really good steps to probably implement in a lot of our practices to make sure that we're ahead of this game. Should, God forbid, knock on wood, anything like this ever happened to us. So thanks again, Tom, Zach. Pleasure having you guys. Congrats on the upcoming baby, Zach, and have a fantastic Halloween.
You too.
You too. Thank you.
Well, there it is. 3 truly terrifying stories from our Claims Crypt. And in each one, the doctors really didn't do anything wrong. They followed the rules. They documented. They communicated. They built their practice with care, and they took care of their patients. But we live in a litigious world. Doing everything right doesn't always mean accusations won't come or the lawsuits that may follow. So please remember, it doesn't always matter how careful you are. What matters is that you're prepared. And again, please tell us what you thought of this episode. Share your reviews, your ratings, and your comments wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube versions of the podcast at the NCMIC YouTube channel and drop us a note or an email anytime at askncmic@ncmic.com. We're always looking for reviews, comments, questions, or our next show idea. Thank you for braving this truly terrifying episode of Chiropractical. I'm Jon Kec, and we'll talk to you again soon.